Small airports that the giant Lockheed C-5 could not. It was built to be able to carry the outsized loads that the C-130 Hercules could not. So it's a perfect combination of both aircraft. This aircraft has the ability to take off and land at an unimproved 3,500-foot runway, perhaps hacked off from a mountainside or a jungle area. Now, here's where the airplane's awesome ability to get away from enemy ground fire in a short time possible. You also notice how quiet it is. The last few skirmishes that we've had, where we sent our men and women over to fight for our freedom, have been in landlocked countries. The only way you can get your equipment and personnel in there is to land on runways. There are no roads and no seaports. And here's where this airplane comes in. It is so important. It has the ability, like the C-5 Galaxy, to be able to load on board by driving up an aerial tanker, trailer, and truck, a howitzer gun, jeeps and tanks, and of course manpower. You've got to get them where the fight is, and unless you can airlift them in, you're not going to get them in. Now, let's say the runway is not very long. The C-5 is a great airplane, but it needs a hard surface long runway. Call this airplane here. While it looks smaller than the C-5, this aircraft, in fact, can take 80% of the load of a C-5. It can get it into an airport that is comparable in performance to the 4-engine turboprop Lockheed C-130. So it is the best combination of both of those aircraft. As they come in, they'll come in with the landing gear down. I want you to notice the distance between the nose gear and the main gear. Quite often, when you hack out a strip in the jungle, in the desert, on a mountainside, you don't have the luxury of a parallel taxiway. So you've got to turn the airplane around on the runway or be able to back it up. Now, as they come in on the high-speed pass, watch and listen to the quiet. 300 knots. It has a glass cockpit, similar to those inside of Top Gun fighters. It also has that side stick control. Not a yoke like in the airliners, but actually a side stick or a joystick control that the pilot uses. The rear door is also a ramp for rapid deployment and loading of combat-ready troops and or that heavy equipment that is required at the battle area. When they built the C-5, they said, what's the biggest piece of Army equipment that would need to get lifted in? And that's the dimensions they made on the fuselage, and they did the same thing with this aircraft. But through technology have been able to get this aircraft into small runways. Now it has 4 engines, as you can see. They're mounted up very high, and part of the beauty of that is the fact that they will not pick up ground-based debris or FOD and damage the engines on reverse, rollout, or normal operations. Four engines are Pratt & Whitney engines, 40,000 pounds of thrust apiece, the same engines that are mounted on the Boeing 757 passenger jet. All right, now as it comes in low and slow, look at the trailing edge and the leading edge of the wing. Through sophisticated leading edge and trailing edge devices, they're able to get the aircraft extremely slow for slow approach speeds into very short, unimproved runways. They actually change the shape of the wing and give it less speed and more lift. By the way, see those winglets out on the wingtips? That's the mark of aerodynamic inefficiency. They are anti-drag devices. They look small from the ground. Those wingtips shooting up to the vertical. Those vertical wingtips are 9 feet tall. So if you have a very tall basketball player with his arms straight up, he still, while standing on the wing, cannot touch the top of that wingtip. At slow speed, maximum maneuverability. The aircraft has an empty operating weight of about 280,000 pounds and loaded with cargo and or troops and fuel. Maximum gross weight is about 500,000 pounds. This great airplane made its inaugural flight back in 1991. Since that time, the C-17 has set over 20 world records, including payload to altitude and time to climb records. Going to deliver the first operational C-17 to Charleston Air Force Base back in June of 1993. There is a big transport aircraft, probably weighing in at about 350,000 pounds as we speak, maybe a little bit more, and setting up for a tight radius turn. Tight turning capability, and especially at slow speeds to keep the diameter of the turn in tight, stay out of the vulnerability of being shot by enemy fire outside the friendly base. It's a whale of an airplane. Chris tells me, what'd you say about
the whale from Free Willy, the movies, when they brought it to its last home, was transferred in a C-17 of the United States Air Force.
Now, there has been talk, and it's strictly been talk, that civilians may be able to purchase these aircraft and use them as straight haulers. I've read about it, but personally, I don't think you're going to see it for several different reasons. But that's only my humble opinion. Now, insomuch as the aircraft could land on gravel runways, unapproved runways, you're always worried about dirt, debris, and fog damaging the jet engines. It has dual reversers on both the main engine core and the fan to stop the airplane in a short period of time. It has the ability, like the Lockheed C-130 Galaxy, to actually back up on a runway. If a runway is too narrow to turn around, by the way, this airplane needs only 90 feet of diameter on a runway to turn around, you actually back it up, unload the aircraft, and then you're at the departure end when you've unloaded it, secured it, ready to take off again. Now, because of the lifting devices on the leading edge and trailing edge of the aircraft, minimum safe speed is low, but still safe. In the event of a go-around, the runway is blocked or the enemy appears, the pilot merely has to add power and go around again. Now look at the distance again. You can see the big balloon tires. They're meant to spread the weight footprint of the airplane over a greater period of unapproved runway, and a quite narrow distance or short distance between the nose gear and the main gear. Look how quick it stops. Touching down and stopping at about 15 to 1,700 feet of runway length. Then goes the clutch. On back. On back. Okay, the big clutch, yeah. All right, wait, you ground the gears there. Double clutch it next time. Into reverse. Back it up, unload it. Minimum time, you're on your way. Miss your taxiway on purpose, you merely back up till you see it off your left and exit the runway.
Okay, Mr. Dingus. Mr. Dingus, if you're in the crowd, please go pick your wife up. That's Mrs. Helen Dingus at the Lost Child booth. Again, Mr. Dingus, if you're in the crowd and you hear my voice, your wife Helen is waiting for you at the Lost Child Center.